Hi, I'm Joey. This is my story. My little brother, Clark, is definitely the baby of the family. My parents dote on him, especially my dad, and to be honest, I do too. A lot of people say their younger siblings are annoying, but I can't imagine life without my brother. A few months ago, Clark was diagnosed with a rare cancer. We were devastated. After talking with his doctors, it seemed like the only option was a surgery that health insurance would only partly cover. My family is low income. My dad is a police officer, but his salary barely stretches to care for a whole family, let alone for his sick kid. I didn't know what to do. My parents were sad and worried all the time. They put every cent of their savings into Clark's medical care. I noticed we had less to eat. And my mum said no new clothes, not even from the thrift store, even though I was rapidly growing out of my old ones. I didn't complain. Even when my stomach was growling during school, or when other kids made fun of my too small jeans, I was too worried about my brother. I pushed myself harder in school, even though I had no focus. I didn't want to give my parents any more reason to worry. It was because I was staying up so late to study that I noticed my dad leaving the house at night, even when he didn't have a night shift. That made me nervous. What if the stress was too much for him, and he was becoming an alcoholic or something? That didn't seem like my dad, though. My dad would never spend money on booze when Clark needed him. Our dad was a hero. One night, I followed him. I saw him go into the corner market. I watched through the window as he greeted some people. Everyone in town knew him. A little while later, he came out again, but I hadn't seen him buy anything. The next day, our cabinets were stocked with beef jerky and other snacks. I told myself my dad must have bought them at the market, and I just hadn't seen him pay. But I had an uneasy feeling. This became a pattern. My dad would leave at night, and in the morning there would be cans of soup, or new bottles of Tylenol, or a new pair of jeans for me. And one morning, he was at the computer. So happy, he was practically singing. When he got up to go to the kitchen, I looked at the screen and saw that he was listing some jewellery on eBay. It appeared that my dad, my hero, had become a thief. I didn't know what to do. Should I confront him? He was doing it for a good reason. We needed every bit of his paycheck to pay for Clark's surgery, but we also needed to eat. And my dad was a police officer. He couldn't break the law unless he absolutely had to. I decided not to say anything. Clark's health was the most important thing. One day, I came home to find my mum sobbing. "What's wrong?" I asked, terrified that something had happened to Clark. "Your dad's at the station," she cried. "He was caught on camera stealing from the jewellery store." "He was arrested?" I could feel panic rising in my chest. She shook her head. "No, the chief was the one who saw the security footage. He and your dad have been friends for a long time. He wanted to give your dad a chance to explain." "That's good," I said, hopefully. "As soon as the chief hears the truth, he'll let dad go." Mum wiped her eyes. "Your dad doesn't want to tell him. He says he knows he broke the law and he deserves the same punishment as any of the criminals he's arrested over the years." I was shocked and furious. My dad's moral code was going to leave the family with nothing. So now he decides to play the martyr. Where was his conscience when he was stealing from every shop in town? My mum looked stunned. "You knew?" "I saw him one night," I mumbled. "And then we started getting all that new stuff." She stared straight into my eyes. "Your father is a good man, Joey." "I know that, but he can't just decide now that he deserves to get arrested. We need him. Clark, especially. He should tell them the truth." My mum got the steely look in her eyes that I remembered too well from my entire childhood. "We don't need to air our dirty laundry to the entire town. It's our business." "Clark's cancer isn't dirty laundry," I shouted. She'd always been like this, so independent that she wouldn't let the neighbours help us plough our drive in the winter or ask her friends for support during Clark's illness. People might help us if they knew, "Don't you care about Clark?" For a second, I really thought my mum would slap me. I'd never seen her look so angry in my life. "Don't you dare ever question my devotion to my family," she hissed. "Stop talking right now." But I couldn't stop. "And what do you think's going to happen when word spreads around town that Dad's a thief? That's dirty laundry." My mum stood up, slamming the table with both hands. That shut me up fast. "I don't want to hear another word about it," she said. "This is your father's choice." I had never openly defied my mother, and I'd been trying especially hard to make her life easier since Clark got sick. But this was too important. Clark was too important. I went up to my room and took a few deep breaths. I said a silent apology to my mum and snuck out the window. My heart was pounding the whole way to the police station. When I burst in, people looked surprised. They all knew me, but I never came here without Dad. A couple of them looked disgusted, like they knew I was the son of a criminal. "I need to see the chief," I panted. "He's busy right now," said one of the desk workers. "You can't see him." But just then, the chief walked out from the back. "Joey." There was a mix of emotions on his face. "Come on, back to my office." "Is my dad here?" I asked when we were sitting down. "Your dad's in one of the back rooms. I'm afraid we have no choice but to arrest him. We have him on camera, stealing." He shook his head sadly. "I never thought your dad would become a corrupt officer." "He's not corrupt," I insisted. And then I poured out the whole story about Clark. I knew my parents might hate me for it, but if there was a way to get my dad out of this, I had to try. When I was done, the chief was very quiet. And then he said, "Joey, I'd like you to go on home, please. I need to talk to your dad." I went home and sat on the couch, terrified of what would happen next. Would my dad be arrested? Would my mum find out what I'd done? But around 11 p.m, my dad walked in the door. He didn't say anything. He just gave me a huge hug. My mum came in too and stood there looking pale and frightened. "They're giving me a second chance," Dad said finally. "Thanks to Joey." My heart swelled. I couldn't believe it had worked. My dad had to return the stolen goods we still had in our house and reimburse the shops for the rest. Then he was put on probation with the department. The department set up a crowdfunding page for Clark's surgery, and it raised enough to help with the expenses. My dad has never stolen since, and he's very open about how what he did was wrong. I'm glad I told the truth, but it was a hard decision to make, to defy my parents' wishes for the good of the family.